This is where I do my intro. I'm JChow.
Well, just tell us where everybody can find you.
Yeah, twitch.tv/JChow live. I'm a liberal. My politics are informed by what I studied, political science. If you like political science and analysis, then find me on my channel.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're going over kind of a nuanced version of nationalism versus globalism tonight, but I'll let you go ahead as the challenger and open up with your 7 minutes. Go ahead.
Thanks. So I did say that my politics is informed by political science, but really my main major is actually international relations, which is what's really going to inform me on this topic, nationalism versus globalism. I understand nationalism to be an approach to policy that prioritizes the interests of one's nation, especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations. That's a definition that you could just find online, Googling it. Although I'm in favor of arguing for globalism, that's what I'm here for. I actually do consider myself a nationalist, particularly a civic nationalist. So I think BPF and I could find some common ground in this nuanced discussion. But I think a focal point in this debate is going to be on, well, arguing what is actually the best interests of a nation. I think most people in the United States, in particular, for example, are nationalists themselves. They care about their country and they think about what's best for that country. But they just have disagreements on what is actually the best. And if you also really think about it, a nation's interest doesn't necessarily have to conflict with global interests. In fact, I'm going to argue that like a lot of the times they align with each other. So on the other hand, globalism is the operation or planning of economic and foreign policy on a global basis. The year is 2022, and I think it's fair to say that in today's world, it is the most globalized it's ever been in history. The economy, science, even politics has become globalized. I think these are overall good things, but I think what's more important to know are the global problems that we face. And so, like, I'm talking about nuclear war, mass migration, climate change, disease. A lot of these, if not all, are accidental problems and aren't going to be solved on a national scale. The United States is the big daddy hegemon, but it's one country out of 193. The United States is the largest economy in the world, but its population is about, give or take, 330 million in a world inhabited by almost 8 billion people. Can you believe that? Like the last time I thought about it, it was 7 billion, but we're nearing 8 billion people on this earth. So like this is to say that global problems, I think, require global solutions. And if we understand nationalism to be at the detriment of global considerations, then I think we have to recognize that nationalism has a hard time giving solutions to these global problems. Thank you, and that's my opening.
Okay, gotcha. So I didn't know exactly where you were going to come from with this debate. I didn't prepare a formal opening statement, but I took some notes as we were going. So the first thing I would address in my opening is that my opponent here, Jay Chow, says he's a civic nationalist. It doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't really tell us anything. Civic nationalism is a very broad term that can be defined a lot of different ways, and is pointed to by a lot of different people. But usually, what that means is that they want some type of free for all for immigration, and this type of thing. That's generally the civic nationalists or free traders, free immigration. Some of them are even for open borders. So I would kind of need that to be defined more. Next, he says that there's a national interest overlap between globalists and globalist viewpoints in the nation's interest. Well, that's fine. They can overlap, but the true nationalist believes that the nation's interest is going to come first, period, whether or not it will overlap. And so I'll probably be arguing against that. I can already tell. The next thing is it seems that maybe Jay Chow here thinks that we're all interchangeable widgets, and that everything requires a global solution. However, as a cultural nationalist, I know that some cultures are not very compatible. Um, as far as globalization of economics, oftentimes you'll see civic nationalists and you'll also see neoliberals make this kind of general argument against nationalism by saying that there's a global economy. Nobody's ever said that there wasn't a global economy. Even if you're a isolationist, you still often will trade within a global economy. and it's absurd to think otherwise. There's always been global trades with the nations, even people who put their national interests first. It's not a requirement that you become some type of global citizen in order to do that. Last JChow says, look, it's amazing. There's 330 million people inside this hegemonic nation called the United States. That's true. Says there's going to be 8 billion people in the world soon. That's also true. It'll peak at 10 billion, but the problem is that we're seeing a massive decline in replacement rates, and we're going to see a massive deceleration in that. And none of the globalists ever point that fact out. That pretty soon you're not going to be able to just shuffle people from one place to another because replacement rate is so low. And with that, I'll open the floor for the back and forth. JChow.
Yeah, so then let's start with one of the global problems that I mentioned. What would be the nationalist approach to dealing with nuclear war or proliferation?
And what do you mean by dealing with it? They would push a button and their nuclear bombs would launch. That's how they
Yeah,
would
but
deal.
would you
I
want
don't know
that?
what you mean by
Would you
deal
wait
with it.
wait hold on? Would you want that?
Depending on the circumstances, I may want that.
What circumstances? Can you list them out?
Yeah, another nation has nuclear bombs and launches them at us.
So then
That
it
would
would
be a
be a
good
so it
circumstance.
would be a response to another country doing that.
Yeah,
But
there could be potential for preemptive strikes using small tactical nuclear bombs as well,
okay.
depending on what the circumstances were. If it was in the nation's interest.
Have you heard something called mutually assured destruction?
Yeah, that's been around since the Cold War. It was one of our big policies during the Cold War was mutually assured destruction.
Well,
That's
it,
what
it
kept
wasn't
both
really a
nations
policy.
from. It kind of was. It was a military-based policy. I mean, they literally ramped both militaries around it. It's the reason the war stayed cold. They were afraid if it was going to be a hot war that we would destroy each other with nukes. So, I mean, that's kind
Yeah.
of
Okay. So
precise.
then,
That's like
like,
every policy
so
decision
then, would a
basically was made
preemptive?
off of that.
All right. Sure. Sure. I'll let go of that. So, would a preemptive strike? Wouldn't that trigger mutually assured destruction?
Can.
It can. Okay. Well, what makes you say that it won't?
Well, it's possible that you can target nuclear installations in other countries with your own nuclear bombs and blow them up before they can send them back. It's possible that you could sabotage their nuclear strikes capabilities before then. There's all kinds of different possibilities. There's also the possibility that you obliterate them before they can launch using your submarines that are parked right off their coast, like most of our nuclear subs are. So,
Yeah. So as far as I'm aware, a lot of these installations can't actually be neutralized, and I'm pretty sure. Let's just use Russia as an example of a potential adversary, like a Cold War situation, like it was a couple of decades ago.
mhm.
Wouldn't isn't that a problem
In what way?
in a way that, well, I just explained to you that we can't neutralize them.
Okay, so why do you
S
need to neutralize them though? I mean, the whole
Well, I
world
think
has
you
nukes.
well I think you
The
need to
whole, the
neutralize
whole,
them.
the whole,
Okay, no,
the
your
whole world has
solution,
nuclear bombs.
your solution, or not solution. One of the scenarios is that we could use nuclear weapons for a preemptive strike. I bring up mutually assured destruction. You say your response is to go around that. We could sabotage their nuclear installations, and my counter to that is, well, not all of them can actually be sabotaged.
Yeah,
It,
but I don't understand what the point is of the questions. What's the point that you're
I
driving
think the point is that, at least like in my counters to yours, that national as like you as a representative of like being pro-nationalist doesn't really have, I say, a good response to the proliferation of nuclear weapons and nuclear war.
oh, I see. Okay, so you're saying that you would deal with a country like that using uh, tactics like blockades, trade tariffs, things like that, in order to get them
Diplomacy,
to, in order to
mainly
get them to
diplomacy.
in order to get them to disarm, right?
Yes, and I
Well, that
think,
would be really bad for that nation, though, wouldn't it? To allow this hegemonic state to just have unfettered access to nuclear bombs while they have no access to them. That would be
well,
pretty
I
bad for
never
their
said
nation, wouldn't it?
that I wanted the United States to be the only country with nukes. I would
Yes,
prefer
but
if
that's
all
the
countries
problem
had.
with your logic. The problem with your logic of, trying to take nuclear bombs away from everybody because you think that that's bad for the nation. Well, from our perspective, it would be great for our nation to be the only ones who have nuclear bombs. So we would probably want to use that evil hegemonic power that you allude to in order to get everybody else to give up theirs, so we're the only ones with them, right?
I think wouldn't you say that uh the government, our government, kind of has the best interest at heart for our nation? Would you say that?
No,
No, you wouldn't.
no,
You would say
no, I wouldn't say
you
that.
have that. Okay. So then you would disagree with the United States disarming its nuclear weapons and decreasing our capacity of nuclear weapons.
Not necessarily. It depends. Like
What does it
if we
depend on?
have the well, it depends on what we would need them for tactical purposes. Like if we have enough nuclear weapons to adequately defend ourselves by blowing up the world 5 times, then yeah, maybe we can stop spending money on nuclear weapons.
Okay.
Sure. The problem is like sure we can sit here and say we would love to see a world that had no more nuclear bombs in it, right? But
Yeah.
the cat's out of the bag, and that's not ever going to be a world that we live in again, ever. Whether or not you live inside of a globalist a nation or a globalist society or a society of nations, nuclear bombs aren't going anywhere.
I could agree with that. I can't tell you for sure in the future if we actually are ever going to be in a nuclear weapons free world, but I would want it to be as close as possible. And it is an ideal world, but we are kind of going towards that. Most countries that do have nuclear weapons are decreasing its capacity. And what I really like about, say, like, about the Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT?
Yeah.
So when that was put into place, a bunch of countries that had nuclear weapons or had a nuclear program disarmed. And I think that is like kind of the contribution, or it says by itself that, hey, countries recognize that even if it is within their interest for security reasons to defend themselves, to hack nuclear weapons, it's just overall better for humanity that no country have weapons. So they're contributing to that.
Okay. Fair enough. But nations, as far as working in the way of their national interests, have banded together many times to come up with agreements while still keeping their nations intact without having any type of unionization or globalization in order to do those things. So I don't know exactly why you would need to either A, abolish a nation or move more towards a globalist style economy in order to have treaties with other nations in regards to nuclear bombs. That doesn't
Hmm.
really make much sense.
Okay. In response to that, I kind of want to clarify my position, my personal position of calling myself a globalist. I don't want to abolish the nation. I think that'd be
Why
pretty
not?
difficult to do.
Well, saying
Why?
because I
Well,
think it would be difficult to do is different than saying you don't want
I
to.
think I
So
think
which one is
there's
it?
I think people have national identity that's really tied to their nation, and that's pretty important to them. So I wouldn't want to abolish the concept of nation, not just yet. Maybe like if you asked me in a hypothetical idealist world in which I was God, then yeah, maybe I would answer differently. But in the real world, I want to say I'm more of a materialist. So I don't think like advocating for the abolishment of a nation is really fruitful for me. But
So what do you want to see? Just
what I
more
do want to
nations
see is
involve
more global
themselves in
governance. So pay
well then
attention to
who
the word that I said, governance, not government.
right. So more and who would you like to see head up this governance? Certain nations?
I would like to see every single country participate in it, and I think what we have right now is pretty close to it. It's called the United Nations.
Yeah, the United Nations is only representative really of the West at this point, isn't it?
No, member states are of countries all over the place.
Yeah, but
193.
it's mainly representative of the West, isn't it? Meaning
No.
that
In what way is that the
no.
case? No, I
Well,
don't
it
agree.
means that the United Nations is ineffective without using lots and lots and lots of Western money, right?
Every single country contributes a percentage of its GDP to
Mm-hmm.
the
And
United
and
Nations
and would you say that the United States is flow into the United Nations budget is pretty significant?
by the nature that it has the largest GDP in the world. Yes.
Yeah, so we're paying for the containment of the old Soviet Union on our dime. so that Europe feels better about the fact that the Russians are there. Isn't that basically what's going on? And we're doing that on our dime.
Sure. So if you want to get into like NATO, which I wouldn't say has something to do with the United Nations, but more so into another global concept that I would be in support of, which is called
Oh,
collective.
wait.
Okay,
What was the League of Nations?
the League of Nations,
What was the League of
an
Nations?
international organization after that was created after World War One, that attempted to do the same thing as the United Nations after World War Two,
Mhm. And what were they trying to contain?
and they contain I understand it as they were trying to create an international organization that would build an infrastructure where countries can participate in global governance to the point where they can make trade agreements.
No,
They
that's not how
could
governance works. The people come together only for the purposes of mutual self-interest. They don't usually come together for external goals. That's why you see things, for instance, like the International Space Station. It's all a fucking mess, right? Because there's not actually any mutual self-interest there in having an international space station. What would it be other than PR? There's just not really much there. Usually, countries make alliances or treaties with each other based on some type of mutual self-interest. So if the League of Nations was formed, it was formed for a specific goal, and it was formed for containment. Same thing with the United
containment of what?
Nations. Well, it's I'd have to go back and look. I don't remember what the specifics of it were for the League of Nations, but it's the same thing with NATO. It's the same thing with the United Nations. There's always a specific goal that's formulated for these organizations,
I
and it's
agree.
usually centered around containment of some type of threat or some type of problem. For instance, why would you want to see more global governance unless you thought that it would lead to more containment of some type of problematic nation?
Interesting. Okay, so you said that countries only go into these kinds of agreements if there's mutual self-interest.
Yeah.
I agree. So then you would, by that logic, then the United States participating in the United Nations, in NATO, in all these global operations that it does, it's for its self-interest. Would you agree with that?
I agree that, yeah, I would agree that it would be for the purposes of what they would consider the national interest.
Okay.
Problem is that there's often a deviation between what an immoral government deems to be national interest and what's actually in the natural or national interest.
Oh, what is actually in the national interest? So then, what would you say to be the actual national interest?
To limit democracy as fast as possible. That's what I would say would be in the national interest right now.
Wait, limit democracy?
Correct.
Okay, so it feels as though like we're removing ourselves from the conversation. Went from United Nations to then like collective security under NATO,
No,
and then now
well,
like
no, no, no.
democracy.
Back
Like,
up.
wait, oh, yeah,
You
yeah.
ask me
Q,
if
Q.
you ask me specific questions, I give you specific answers. So if you say to me, "What do you think the greatest threat is to blank?" and let's say we were talking about the possibility that there was aliens, and then you said, "What do you think the greatest threat is?" and I said something besides aliens. You can't say that I'm shifting the conversation. I'm just asking or responding to the questions you're asking me.
Sure, Q, because I'm actually really lost by the answer that you gave. I don't think it was actually an answer to my question unless you could
Well, your
explain it
question
further.
was, what do you think is in the the national interest of the United States right now? Pressing national interest, and I told you I think it's to limit
Oh,
democracy.
okay, okay. Let me rephrase that then. So what I'm asking you is like, if there's a true national interest and then there's a national interest that our country is pursuing,
Hmm.
and this was in response to me saying, hey, the United States does X, Y, and Z, it's doing that because it's in its national self-interest by
Well,
your
it's in the
definition.
governor. It's in the government's interest. But
Okay.
the government of the United States doesn't use its own money. It uses taxable money from the people. So they can essentially spend as much as they want. They have to take no responsibility for it because they serve a very very short tenure, and then they're out. So essentially, they can construe anything as being in the national interest, whether it is or it's not,
Yeah,
which is why I was saying that the core of democracy itself is what the flaw is with such a system.
I see. Okay. So then, like, you would say that the true national interest stems from the people and not the
Stems
government.
from the interest of the people, yes.
But then, but couldn't I also just say that the government is representative of the people via
You
democracy?
you could say that. That's true. You could say the government is a representation of the people. Therefore, it's exactly the representation the people deserve. I would even agree with you. right? But
Okay.
we're talking then about the concise concept. I'm just simply pointing out to you what I think the greatest problem is,
Okay.
right? So if you're saying in this particular case, the nation is engaging with other nations and spending its money in this and that because the politicians think it's in our mutual self interest for some reason, along with it, of course, filling their pockets usually with a lot of money, then I would tend to agree that that's true. I just don't advocate that that system's the best.
Okay. So then what would be the best then?
The best thing to do would be to limit the democratic order so that only people who have a staked interest can actually vote. And in this way, what you would do is you would limit the number of people responsible for decision making, and they would actually have to take responsibility for it. So think of it in terms, I think an easy way to construct this to people's minds is Starship Trooper rules, right? X amount of service guarantees citizenship. And with that, you can vote. So I
Okay.
think that 4 years of service, for instance, might be adequate for that. But I don't think that you should give everybody voting rights because, well, a lot of fucking stupid people. And there's a lot of people who vote for the wrong reasons. And I think that it's better to have stakeholder voting.
Okay. Well, this could definitely be a conversation for another time.
Mhm.
Um
Well, I
so
mean,
so then like
it ties in. It ties into the national worldview, whether you like it or not. The nationalistic worldview, anyway. It's not that common for nations. That's only a recent thing where nations have allowed everybody inside the country to vote. That's a modern concept.
I think it does in this debate though, as like a globalist, it really doesn't fit. I wouldn't know what would be like the best form of government from a globalist point of view.
Well, then why
But
are you a globalist?
either
Because
way,
you just want countries to work better together. I mean, they can
oh,
do that.
absolutely.
Well, but they can do that without having any type of global governmental bodies of any kind. They can still work together just fine.
I disagree. I think what international organizations do is they act as third parties. They create the infrastructure. They're institutions that states can trust because without them, states can't really trust each other. So they're like the
Like
middleman
what?
is in how like what do you mean like what?
Like what? Like what type of third party operation are you talking about?
Okay. So take for example UN peacekeeping. You know, we could say what we want about
We're
how
back to the
good or
United
bad.
Nations
We're back.
again.
We're back. Well, I mean, like but that's the international. That's the integral, big picture
Right.
international
But we
organization
already
that
have a
does flow.
problem. The problem is that the people who contribute the most have the most say over the United Nations. They trip the funding. It's cannot be a fair organization on its face. It's not possible because of the amount of funding that comes into it from a very few amount of nations compared to others. So I was like, man, I think that's a very poor example. The UN doesn't have a great track record of doing anything productive at all. Like, what do you think that the UN is so great at doing exactly that we weren't great at doing pre-UN? It's kind of bizarre to me. What is it
Yeah.
that you're advocating they do more of? Fight
Okay.
global warming?
Well, actually, something that comes from the UN is the COP conferences. Do you know what those are? We just had
Uh,
one a couple months
I
ago in
might not.
Glasgow.
I probably do, but maybe I haven't heard it called that. What's its function?
So, COP is a it's an acronym that I can't name off the top of my head, but it's this annual conference in which state leaders they come together in one place. It also involves other organizations like companies and uh, NGOs and whatnot,
Hmm.
and
And they have a big
they
board meeting and they
yeah,
talk about all the
yeah,
problems,
all
and
the
then they
problems of global
dispatch
warming.
everybody
Yeah,
everywhere to hand out contraception to Africans in Kenya, right? This
contraception. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But their main goal is that at the end of each conference, that they have an agreement in which everybody has says like, yes, we're gonna do this, etc., etc. There was a pretty good one in Montreal, like 1987. It's called the Montreal Protocol, in which
okay.
that's where the world banned CFCs. Do you know what those are? I like chlorine, carbon fluoro chlorine, whatnot. It's the stuff in aerosols.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
man,
and
that
remember
hole in
like
the
the
ozone
ozone
world.
layer?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
everyone was gonna die until the UN came in and outlawed hairspray, right? JHL?
Yes, yeah, something like that. But like
Yeah,
you don't get to
that's
hear.
fucking insane. And I don't
Wait,
know
what do you mean it's
how
insane?
anybody on planet Earth can possibly see, but I was alive in the 90s. So I
Yeah,
remember hearing about how the hole in the ozone layer was going to kill everybody. And of course,
yeah,
they switched gears very quickly when there was no hole and, not everybody was dying. I'm absolutely sure that that was due to the fact that even though there's aerosol cans everywhere to this day, everywhere, that it's due to the fact that the UN came together, patted each other on the back, and outlawed CFCs, right, JChow? Thank God for
yeah.
that UN, or there'd be a hole in the ozone layer and we'd all be dead, right?
Exactly. Yep. And I have this great headline for you. Okay, scientists reveal how landmark CFC ban gave
Mm-hmm.
planet fighting chance against global warming. It's from
Mm-hmm.
the
Where'd that come
Lancaster
from? The
University.
sun.
The Lancaster, the Sun
Come
Universe.
on, man. The United Nations
No, I
didn't.
would want it
The
to come
United
from the
Nations
Earth
didn't stop.
University.
The United Nations didn't stop the hole in the ozone layer. It was just that the hole in the ozone layer was fucking bullshit. That's what happened. Like
You
that's what's
think so?
reality. Yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah, I think
Well,
so.
if
But thank God
I
that the
don't have
UN.
a source on that. No.
Right. So in your world, the United Nations saved the planet from the hole in the ozone layer. Like you honestly believe that that's true.
I do. Yes.
Yeah, you do.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so
And
how
it
am
seems like
I?
you don't
So
believe in that, but okay.
no, I don't believe that the United Nations saved planet Earth from a hole in the ozone layer that was going to be caused because too many dumbass teeny boppers were using fucking hairspray. Jay Chow,
Hmm.
just going to tell you right now, I think that that's a bullshit ass narrative. I don't think for a
Okay.
second that is true. One
Do you think the
second,
United
super.
Nations has anything to do with preventing World War III?
No, I don't. In fact, what is the United Nations going to do about Russia going and annexing a neighbor like maybe Crimea? What would they do about something like that, Jay Chow? Surely they could stop it, right? Oh wait.
The United Nations doesn't have a
Oh
military,
wait.
just so
Why?
you
How
know.
come the United Nations couldn't stop that, Jay Chow? They stopped the hole in the fucking ozone layer that
Yep.
was going to destroy all of mankind, but they can't stop Russia from annexing Crimea. This is one hell of a tip-top global organization that you
Yeah.
support there.
I don't want to be out here defending Russia, but it seems like from the opinion polling that was done even before Russia decided to go there, annex it, and conduct its referendum, most Crimeans wanted to be Russian. And so then I feel like in that sort of a situation, it's not really much worth it for any
You
sort
know
of
what that's
country to.
called?
What is that
That's
called?
called justification after failure. And what happens
I think
is
that's
you
fine.
have a
Yeah.
goal. Yeah, you have a goal and you fail at the goal. So you justify the failure by saying, you know what, it's not really a big problem because people preferred it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, okay, I guess so China will take over the United States, let's say, and in 30 years, we're like, we had opinion polls though, and like most Americans thought it would be pretty cool to be Chinese anyhow. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
come on, man. The
And you
United
might be one of
Nations,
them, but you might be one of
the
them because those are
the
they
United
sound like nationalists.
Nations,
They're like, hey, it's in our best interest for the
dude.
Chinese to take over us. Like it
The
seems
United
like
Nations did not stop Russia from annexing Crimea. It's not stopping them from going up on these border nations. They're talking about bringing in the United States military because the UN could never handle a problem like that. Okay, not in
where
a
do you get
million
that?
years. UN forces would be crushed. What?
Where do well, there are no such thing as UN forces.
Yes, there are. There are
All
UN
UN forces
forces.
are volunteers from other countries. The United
So
Nations
then
does
they're
not
UN
have a formal
forces.
military. I wouldn't really call them forces. They're more like you would call them peacekeepers. And
Uh
yeah, they
huh.
have guns, but they have their blue hats that says the
Yeah,
UN on it.
yeah. I mean, they've got
Yeah,
their blue
okay.
helmets, they've got their M16s, they shoot people in an organized and trained fashion, but they're not really a military, they're a peacekeeping force. But that's fine, fine. We'll
Yeah, they
just say
only
that they're
shoot for defensive purposes. They only shoot when they get
right,
shot at.
right, gotcha. Okay,
Hmm.
until they're used to, actually not do that anymore. But
When has that been the
sometimes
case?
sometimes you have to fight offensive. Well, we haven't had a major conflict where it's been necessary, but the thing is we're
So you're
probably never going
predicting
to
the
have.
future?
Well, we're probably never going to have a conflict where it's necessary, Jay Chow, because anytime a country like Russia just wants to take over its neighbor, there's nothing the UN can seem to do about it except cry. literally just cry. There's nothing they can do. They can cry about Mia, right? That's all they can do because they absolutely failed to contain it, didn't they? And
Yeah,
by the
but
way,
what
what
we
would the
could also
United
do,
Nations do if China decided to take over Hong Kong?
hey,
What do you think they would do?
still continuing on this Ukraine thing, what we have done in the United Nations, the United States, and other countries is that we've also made sure that Russia has felt the consequences of them doing that, even if it necessarily wasn't preventative, even if it wasn't contained, even if we didn't accomplish what we actually wanted to accomplish. We have given Russia they have faced a lot of consequences, particularly in their economy, where they have not recovered since the financial crisis because of our sanctions.
So, just to get this right, Russia was already being sanctioned long before they annexed Crimea, correct?
More sanctions. I mean, like, okay,
Okay, right. So
yeah.
even though Russia was already being punished and the United Nations had already effectively crippled it with their awesome sanctions, it still managed to annex Crimea with no problems. But don't worry, they'll never be able to do it to another nation because now we have sanctions plus one, right, JChow?
I guess so, but I mean, like, would you want to be a country with sanctions or sanctions plus one? I think I would rather be the former.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but if it's not stopping them from, just enveloping their neighbors at a whim, with essentially the only consequence being, well, now you can't get cheaper candy bars for your nation, they don't seem like they give two shits about that, man. This question came in $5 super chat from Neon Noir. We appreciate that. Does Jay Chow approve the policies of the Chinese government as they stand?
Which policies? The Chinese government has a lot of policies. They're a big government, and there's a lot of people in that country.
Mhm. Yeah, well,
Okay.
I'm sorry to get off topic. I thought maybe that would be a good way for us to steer back in to the ineffectiveness of the United Nations and how the United Nations has no containment policy for places like China, places like Russia. They don't seem to be able to stop them from doing anything. I don't really understand what the point is for all this global cooperation when these large countries can just envelop an entire neighbor, or can support a nation like North Korea, and there's absolutely nothing that anybody can do about it. But luckily, we have all that global cooperation, I guess.
Yeah, I think, but here's the thing: is that at least like maybe it's a perception thing because right now, living as we are, a lot of these big situations like Crimea, China, and all these like big power politics plays, um, I think they're a big deal to us in like in the terms of how we're seeing them as we're alive. But in the comparison to say like the other instances in which we didn't have global governance, it was a lot worse to the point where like we had World War One and World War Two. And like the time in between those two world wars.
Oh, we had Vietnam after
and
that,
and the
and we
time
had Korea after World War II. It's like the
those
UN.
world
I
war
mean,
I mean
what are you
no
talking about, man?
I
You think that the United Nations has not stopped global conflict at all? I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I think it's decreased it a substantial amount.
I think what decreased it a substantial amount was the advent of the nuclear bomb and the fact that now if nations go to war, they can blast each other off the face of planet Earth, and they couldn't
How
do
many
that in the
countries do you
19.
think have nuclear weapons?
I think that all the major nations have them, which would include China and India and Russia and the United States and most of the major superpowers of Europe as well. So the thing is that
Whoa,
do
whoa,
I
whoa,
think,
wait. What are the superpowers of Europe?
well, I just named it Russia.
And France, UK? Because those
Yeah,
those are
well,
those are the only countries that I know have nuclear weapons.
yeah, well, France and the UK, yeah, but that's not the
But not
superpower.
Germany?
I think Germany has them as
You
well.
think Germany has nuclear weapons?
I think that they do. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
So
Germany doesn't.
as far as I know, this is
But
the list
whatever.
of
I didn't
countries.
name I didn't name Germany. I named one country, which was Russia. So what I'm saying to you is that
Okay.
the major superpowers that
Yeah.
are out there, which would be India, that's what I named, Russia, that's what I named, the United States, that's what I named, and China, that's what I named. Those are huge, massive, huge, densely populated areas. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Well, this is really
um,
strange because like now we have Pakistan also have nuclear weapons. And
who? Oh,
Pakistan.
Pakistan. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Pakistan and India,
Yeah, but they don't
they
have
have
great
conflict.
delivery. Yeah, but they don't have great delivery systems for the weapons.
It, they don't have great delivery systems for the weapons.
Yeah, so
So then
having a
I
nuclear
guess.
bomb doesn't mean anything if you don't have a great delivery system. What
Hmm.
makes us so deadly is not that we're going to launch a surface-to-air missile from the United States into Russia. What makes us so deadly is the fact that all of our nuclear submarines are parked right outside of these different continents, so that we can hit them very quickly. We have excellent delivery systems. So what I'm saying to you,
Okay.
essentially, right? Regardless of who has them or doesn't in these smaller nations. I'm only talking in terms of these large, massive nations. And guess what? They're not contained by this global cooperation. What stopped massive global wars was nuclear bombs. What's not anything else. It wasn't that the UN has done such a great job in stopping conflict, because it's most certainly not true, because there's conflict everywhere. We just don't have global wars because whole countries would be fucking annihilated off of planet Earth.
Okay, I see what I did wrong. All right. So when I said the UN, I'm using that as an example of an international organization that has done some work in which I think has attributed to the current relative peace that we have in comparison to the rest of history. But another
What do you
thing,
mean the rest of history?
the rest does. So if you wanted to look at time periods before, there were a lot more international conflicts, and they were a lot more severe in
No,
casualties than
they were mostly
we have now.
localized conflicts, man.
Okay, so when I say history of the world, how about this? In the 20th century, in comparison to
Oh,
the
I see.
20th
So in a
century,
100 year span,
yeah,
there was two global conflicts.
mm-hmm,
We pretty much, I think, can agree that the reason that there's not massive global conflicts between nations now is because of the threat of nuclear annihilation, and it's been that way since at least the 60s or the 50s, right? So I mean, that's it. That's essentially what happened. There's To make some kind of bizarre case that without nukes there wouldn't still be global conflict. It's just insane. Of
no,
course there
I
would
don't
be.
think it has. It's I'm not saying that it's without nukes, but what I'm saying is that a part of that is the kind of diplomacy and the governance that has stemmed from it. So I think like maybe you are attributing a lot of it to nukes, and I would say that that's fair, at least for you. But for me, to my understanding, is that like it's not just the nukes that had a large role into the diplomacy between, say, like the United States and Russia, but both
Well,
countries had a
really, it wasn't
will.
the nukes,
But
huh? It wasn't the
hold on,
nukes that had the large stake.
hold on. Okay, like maybe
Okay.
you're not paying attention. Like maybe you're just like I don't know, simply trying to reduce down, kind of like the thinking to like, oh, nukes, next step, everything else afterwards. Okay, it all goes back to nukes. But at least how I
It does
understand,
all go back to
but at
nukes,
least,
man.
but at least how I understand conflict in the world is that not every single country has a nuke, so you can't really use those arguments for those countries as well. And two, that a lot of diplomacy had to be put into making sure that we weren't going to be using nukes against each other. We were really close in the whatchamacallit, in the
Cuban Missile
yeah, that's
Crisis.
right, the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
You got me there before. I don't think mutually assured destruction by itself prevented that, but what was able to prevent
Then why
that
didn't they
were
launch the
the
nukes?
diplomacy between the two.
How come we wanted the nukes out of Cuba?
Because it was really close to us and it was a threat.
Because it was really close to us and we didn't want the strike capability that close, because then we wouldn't have been able to launch as effectively. So it was all
We had
about strike
Turkey.
capability.
We
What's
had
that?
nukes in Turkey.
That's true, but it was all about strike capability. We didn't want their nukes that close to us,
Yeah, and Russia
right?
didn't want nukes close to them as well.
Right. So the thing is again came down to, so mutually assured destruction through nuclear bombs is what avoided a war with the USSR and made it a Cold War instead of a hot war. And that
Yes.
has really been the state of affairs in the world since the nuclear bomb was made. That's what changed everything, not the fact that we decided we were going to have a bigger spirit of cooperation, right? Because that's really not what happened. What happened was, now we can blow up entire nations. The conversation had to change.
So this is really interesting. So because the conversation changed, then it's not as okay. maybe you're getting like a different vibe from me when I say like increased diplomacy, and I, I I'm not doing it for the just for the sake of diplomacy. There are reasons behind that diplomacy. And at least like for your justification, I agree. A large part of it had to do with preventing nuclear warfare.
Mhm.
But I don't think you could deny that diplomacy didn't exist or it's not doing anything because it did.
Nobody did. Nobody denied that. We are talking
I think
about
you
having some
are.
type. No, we're
Yes.
just talking about having some type of global governmental body. That's what I'm arguing against. I'm saying that it's ineffective, it's nonsensical, has not been able to produce tangible results that anybody gives a flying fuck about, except snapping the hole in the ozone layer, right?
So
Which,
so you
which was a fucking scam.
so you are denying wait so you are denying the role of international organizations and these treaties and diplomacy into, well, what is more so a nuclearless, I guess, world.
Do you think that you have a greater ability to negotiate with another country that you're in a position to fucking destroy?
Gunboat. This is like gunboat diplomacy. Um, I guess like coercively.
Yeah. So
During
you
that time, yeah.
would you be arguing from a position of strength if you were negotiating with a country that you could easily destroy?
I wouldn't want to argue from a position of strength.
Well, that's not what I asked. What I'm asking you is, do you think that if you are in a position where you can just completely obliterate another fucking nation, okay, that the odds are going to be slightly in your favor that what you're negotiating for, you're going to probably get?
Sure, my answer could be yes, but I wouldn't want to live in that world, and I don't think any country would
But
want to
that's
live in
the
that
world that
world.
we live in right now, even with all of these governing bodies from the United Nations and this and that, is that still diplomacy comes from the barrel of a gun. And it has, and it will remain that way for all of human existence because it's just the way that we're fucking wired, right? The nation,
But would you want that? Do you want that? Do you think that's ideal?
do I think it's ideal
Yeah.
that might makes right? I would love to see some type of temperance. I just don't think that it's a feasible system. I think
So
that
what do you want to argue
I
for
think
it
that
though?
what happens is that governing bodies just become corruptible, and that diplomats end up pocketing, and these organizations end up pocketing millions of dollars, and they enrich themselves a ton, and they make all kinds of connections with foreign leaders, and there's all kinds of backdoor deals, and there's all kinds of bullshit that happens. But I don't think that they're particularly effective at stopping conflict or at brokering treaties or anything like this. The world, in case you haven't noticed right now, under the global response for this, well, I can't even get into it, for the lockdowns, let's call them. Okay. I'm on YouTube, so I have to be very cautious about what I say. But there was a global response to this with all types of governing bodies and this and that who all came together. They had a global response to these things. And guess what? It didn't fucking work out so good for everybody, did it? Right now, a whole lot of the world's very fucking pissed off about the response from these governing bodies, aren't they, JChow? They're not very thrilled about how this shit ended up working out for them, are they?
Cool. Let's get into COVID. So it's really
No,
interesting
let's
that you
not.
would.
Let's not. I'm on YouTube and I can't. I literally
Okay.
can't.
All right. So then I'm sorry. This global response, I think is really interesting that you would describe it as a global response, because how I would describe it is that it's a nationalist response. Yes, you have organizations such as, can I say the organization? Such as the
You're gonna
How.
just literally you can't talk about
Yeah.
that on YouTube. You just can't.
Okay, yeah. So
So
you know what?
like
My
I wish you
response is
could. I would be happy to get
yeah,
into it.
I would be maybe in a private conversation. How about that? Or maybe on my Twitch channel. I don't think
Well,
Twitch is that
maybe you can
crazy
just
about it.
say, this thing that happened,
I
right?
don't think
So
this thing that happened. Okay, this thing that happened. I don't think it was a global response. I think it was a nationalist response. I think it was each individual country doing something that they thought it was best for their own country, but then because of that inconsistency, then there were a lot of holes. There were a lot of gaps that couldn't be filled.
oh,
I
hey,
think what's
Jay Chow,
also
what does WHO stand for?
I don't know what
WHO.
you mean.
What does the acronym WHO stand
I
for?
think first. So do you want to talk about this or not?
Well, that I'm asking you, what does it start
Stands
with?
for the World Health Organization.
It stand with the World Health Organization. Does it
Yeah.
stand for the United States Health Organization,
No,
or does it stand? It stands for the World Health
that's
Organization.
right.
And do they have their policies that most countries adopted shortly after this thing hit? The answer to that, JChow, would
I
be
guess it's
yes.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it wasn't really that much of a nationalistic response. It was more of a small elite group of this governing body, right?
Yeah.
Who put out these, here's what you all need to do, and all these different nations did it. And what happened? Well, kind of a fucking nightmare scenario is what ended up happening. That's
Interesting.
kind of
So
what ended up
okay,
happening.
so we're gonna get into this. Do you think China had a nationalist response to COVID? Fuck me. Had a. Do you think that they have a nationalist response or a global response?
I would say that because this thing, yeah, I don't even want to get into talking about it unless what I'm going to do. Everybody who's in the chat can get into Twitch. I'm just going to drop this stream so that I can discuss this freely without having any trouble. So
Unfortunate.
hop into the Twitch stream, okay? And we'll do it. We haven't done anything against TOS yet, but I can see that it's probably going to end up being that way. So jump in the Twitch stream. I'm dropping the YouTube stream right now.
So what? Do you also stream on Twitch?
What's that?
Do you also
Yeah.
stream on Twitch?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yep, I stream on Twitch.
Okay.
I just started really pushing on the Twitch thing. Okay, so now we've dropped down to 13 viewers from what we had. Yeah, I know everybody doesn't like fucking Twitch. I don't care. I can fucking talk about this here. So let's talk about how the World Health Organization fucked everybody over, JChow.
All right, let's
And
talk
how
about it.
what they decided that they were going to do was they were going to come out with their little pamphlet of here's what you need to fucking do in order to stay healthy and the fucking all these different nations adopted it, right? Because they wanted to trust the science. And well, it didn't work out that well. Now you were talking about China and asking if China had a nationalistic response. Well, yeah, but JChow, it fucking originated in China, right? It originated there. There was only so much that could be learned. And guess what? The Chinese government had a lot of input into what the World Health Organization said about COVID in the beginning because they were a huge contributor to the WHO. So, these are kind of organizations that are incestuous in a way, buddy.
What rank is Chinese a contributor to the WHO? Do you know?
I have no fucking. I
They're
have
second.
no idea.
They're second.
Well, so they're huge. They're a huge contributor to the WHO.
Do you know who the
Okay,
first
makes
is? Do you know who the
sense.
first is?
Probably the United States.
Probably the United States. Do you know why?
Because we give the most amount of money in.
It has something to do with percent of GDP. We have a larger GDP than China.
Well, that's
so
nice.
we're going to be funding the WHO more. But that's really interesting because your answer, your logic, your argument is funding. Your argument is funding, and I just said the United States has better funding. So why didn't the United States pull its strings on the WHO?
Well, the United States didn't know what was happening until months after the Wuhan province was locked the fuck down. Okay, the Wuhan province was locked down early on. It was only when China really started to lock down the rest of the nation. I don't remember if it was months or weeks or whatever, but they locked the Wuhan province down, then they locked China down. Then shortly thereafter, on the recommendations of the World Health Organization, the United States began its own form of these lockdowns. Australia, at the advice of the World Health Organizations, began these lockdowns. Right? Representatives in all these nations made these crazy ass fucking recommendations to do this.
Yeah.
And this all came from this global governing body, right? The World Health Organization. It's ended up with ghoulish, nightmarish fucking results for the citizens who live in these areas.
Well, in comparison to say like a country like Sweden, who didn't have any of these lockdowns or social distancing policies or whatnot, to the other countries, and I'm pretty sure then you could compare the two and comfortably say that, yeah, like the lockdowns were ghoulish. It feels bad that we can't see our friends and family and whatnot. But the results in comparison, and when it comes to like people who are getting sick and the casualties and whatnot, in comparison to like a country like Sweden and their policies, yeah, I would say it's a lot better. But my previous point on China being taking like a nationalistic stance, what I was more so referring to is that China wasn't really like feeding all of its information that it had to the WHO. Would you agree with that?
No, I think that they were actually manipulating the WHO in real
Oh
time
wow, it was
to
so it's
give.
even worse. Like it wasn't just
Yeah, it's
like they were
even
keeping
worse.
the information;
Yeah,
they were
that's
changing the
correct.
information.
Yeah.
and and like, but how I would describe their motive, okay, their intentions or what they wanted to achieve is they wanted to make sure that the COVID virus wasn't going to be like a stain onto, well, their reputation on the world stage. So they were trying to control it as much as possible. And I think what ended up happening was it gave the WHO bad information, which then would lead to the WHO giving bad recommendations that weren't going to address everything about COVID. And then all of a sudden, you have a global problem.
So, in other words, one nation, one powerful nation can affect the governing one of these international governing bodies so much that they will actually, to the detriment of the entire rest of the world, give out false information because of the ineffectiveness of their organization. Is that what
That's
you're telling
right.
me, Jay Chow?
And that's
Yeah.
right. But that's a nationalistic response, isn't it?
No, that was a global response
No,
to
no, 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 no.
these
What China did,
organizations
excuse
that
me, what
you
China did,
advocate for. Now,
okay?
look, if the WHO hadn't,
Nationalism to be an approach to policy that
so
prioritizes the interests of one nation,
yeah, but the WHO,
especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations. How I would describe China's
they had
response,
a
their initial
nationalistic
response,
response,
they had a
but
nationalist
we,
response, and I think
okay, but the
that
rest of
is
the
that
world
is
had a
a
global
huge
response.
contributor to the problems of
The
our
rest
globe.
of the world had a global response to this, Jay Chow, that was due specifically to this international body telling them what to do. On top of that, there was all kinds of shortages for items that were never even fucking necessary to begin with in order to combat this pandemic. All of these came as recommendations from global. They were global recommendations that were put down by these globalist scientists with the globalist fucking WHO, and all of the shit that they recommended was all bullshit from the very fucking beginning, essentially. I mean, it just was, man. And we've ended up
I
with
don't
a
agree.
complete
So
and
like,
total
it,
economic fucking collapse. We were on the cusp of economic collapse, Jay Chow. They're finally having to lift the lockdowns, not because people are recommending it, but just because society won't fucking function anymore if we don't.
huh? Okay, there's the economic lockdowns. Now, I might be running off fumes. How much time do we have left? Because I know this is timed.
Right now, we're at the 56, so we've still got 25 minutes.
Okay, so my response to your first point that like these were ineffective, at least from what I've been seeing, is that when it comes to like the models that these scientists, oh no, this might be a bad word for you, right? You might not believe in this point or take it seriously, but when I
What the
look at the
fuck kind of
models,
shot was that?
it's not a
What, I don't
shot.
believe in science because I think that the lockdowns were a stupid fucking idea?
Excuse me, global scientists. Now you might be like a bit taken aback. So like when I see these models and how they're able to at least like give us an idea of what our current situation would have been like if we just didn't do these policies such as lockdown, social distancing,
The
masking, and
same
whatnot,
models that said the
it
fucking
would have
ozone
been
layer was going to kill us all, Jay Chow.
it would have been, well, it would have been really bad.
It would
It
have
would
been
have been a lot more
terrible. I mean, we'll
casualties. There would
never
have been a lot more
know, but
deaths, a
we
lot
have the
more sickness.
models.
We yes, but
Right.
but that's the thing is that like it's I
What did
guess
the
it's
models
really
show in
hard.
Florida? What did they show in Florida, Jay Chow, for the estimates of the amount of people who would end up dying if they didn't lock down? And it turned out that they had less deaths than other states of their size. Isn't that interesting? What's
Hold on a
happened?
second. I'm
What's
pretty
happened?
I'm pretty sure there's some sort of a play here, but I can't properly respond to it, so I guess I'm just going to have to cede that point.
Okay, well, all I'm saying to you is that who cares what the models say? Okay, models are wrong often. I mean, more often than they're correct, for instance, right? Go, why don't you tell me what the models said would happen by the year 2021 if carbon emissions increase? And carbon emissions did increase. Okay, and we're not at some dire state where we have sunken fucking cities all over the place, which is what they were hyping up back in the 90s when I was listening to the shit about the hole in the ozone. And besides the hole in the ozone, that the carbon emissions were coming, everyone was going to die, yada, yada, yada. Look at the models, look at the models, look at them. It was all bullshit, man. None of it ended up being true. And it's not because we did something great and just reined in all the carbon emissions, man. That's just not what happened. You know, same thing happened when these motherfuckers decided to say, hey, if you keep having children, okay, there was a book called The Population Bomb that estimated with their models that if we had, past 6 billion people, that we would have mass starvation worldwide, and the opposite effect happened. We actually have a food surplus due to the increase in population. They get it wrong constantly when you're trying to make global predictions using scientific models. There's so many variables that they're really easy to fuck up, man. They're just really easy to fuck up. And they don't bear out the data very well, just so you know.
Well, I disagree. Probably on this idea that they're useless. I think they're useful to an extent. I don't think they're perfect at all, but it's what we have.
It's what we have. Right. It's
Yeah.
what we have. The thing is, though, man, is like, I hear that a lot from people, right? It's the best science we have. But the thing is that maybe we shouldn't make global policies based on the best science that we have if the science that we have isn't very good. And so the thing is that when you have these international bodies like the WHO that are easily corruptible, they seem to be able to put out a lot of false information, which affects the world's entire policies. And we end up with real serious, significant problems like supply chain breakdowns, like people increasing in alcoholism, mental illness, killing themselves, being isolated, right? Horrific things that happen globally due to the recommendations of this international body. And you want to see more of that. Whereas at a national level, you can, at the micro level, manage your population because you understand their interests better than what some fucking international body who makes these policies.
Well, what's really interesting is that the World Health Organization, what they do is they give out these recommendations for countries to adopt. Now, I would say, probably off the top of my head, most countries have adopted them, but whether or not they actually implemented them to the satisfaction of the World Health Organization is another question. And I want to say it's not. And the big problem, at least like with how global governance is right now, is I would just say it's still too nationalistic. It's still to the point where a international organization, they have recommendations, countries say we're going to do them, and they implement maybe like half of the policies, or they implement all the policies but they half-ass it all because they think about their own, I don't know, like their votes, their popularity, or whatnot.
Okay. It seems like a non sequitur to me, but let's just roll
No,
with
it's
it.
not a non sequitur to it's absolutely not a non sequitur to me, to you. It's what I'm saying, what my point is that even in today's global governance, there is still a lot of nationalistic influence that I will argue gets in the way of achieving the initiatives of the global institutions. But
Good. Because the global institutions
I think
clearly
that's the
fucking
problem.
suck.
No, I think,
Right. So so
but I'll
now
just
so
turn it
now
around to
we
you.
want to
I think what
abolish it.
sucks. I
But
think what
wait,
sucks are
why do
nations.
you not want to abolish the nation then, JChow?
Ooh, why do I not want to abolish the nation? Oh, we're going back to that. Well, I just don't think it's a good thing to do right now.
Well, that's not
People
an
people
answer. Why don't
pe-
you want to do this thing? Because I
it's
don't
not
want to.
feasible. It's not feasible.
Well, of course it's feasible. You could do it tomorrow. You could drop the border between Canada and Mexico tomorrow. There's nothing stopping
Okay,
you
yeah,
from
yeah.
doing
Just
that.
let me call to Biden and Trudeau and be like, "Yo, all right, it's the
What
time
I'm
is now.
asking
Okay,
you is
press that button. Completely destroy the
why is
border."
a moral proposition? Why do you want there to be a nation, or do you not want to? It's a matter of morals. You just
How
think
about
that's not
this? Okay,
feasible.
let's remove the feasibility part of my brain and think about the idealist part of my brain. Okay,
Yeah, let's do that.
in my world, okay, my ideal world, I don't think I would want nations. If or there might be, okay, excuse me, I think there would be one nation. It's called the Earth, the nation of the Earth.
That sounds like globalism, but
Yep,
okay.
it
Yeah, yeah.
I guess so. I guess so.
So the whole world is one nation,
The whole world is one nation, sure. One nation,
and
one government, one people.
this is what you're striving for.
Is this what I'm striving for? I wouldn't say it's what I'm striving for, because that's like probably something that will achieve in like my next 10 lifetimes. Um,
What does that have to do? Why does a time frame matter? If this is what you want to
because it's really
see,
important to
yeah,
like
but if this
have
is what you want to
politics.
see, so when I ask you this question, I say, do you ideally want to see this thing? And you say yes, right? And I
Yeah,
ask you why, you say because you think it would be better.
yeah.
Why shouldn't we do that now? Your response is, well, just because it wouldn't be feasible now.
Oh, it
Okay,
wouldn't
but
be
this,
no like okay, so yeah, well, one, it wouldn't be feasible.
hmm
Two, if we just like did it now, then it wouldn't work at all to how I want it. So like the reason why nationalism is really important is because people have national identities and it's a really strong identity.
so that's why the nation exists is because there's identities that people have that they give over to the nation, and they consider this part of their culture, part of their borders, part of all of this, right?
Absolutely. And that
Okay.
and like changing that identity is really really hard. So even
hmm
if we abolished all nations, all borders, now we have one government, people are still going to hold to their national identity tomorrow, and it's just not going to work. So a lot of
I
people
see.
are still going to be thinking as Americans versus people in China who are thinking as China, even if
Right, got
those
it.
two
Now I
countries
get your
don't exist.
position. So here's what your position is. Your position is, yes, I am a globalist. Yes, I want to see the abolishment of states, right? And I want to see this as fast as we possibly can. That's feasible so that we can get rid of national identity, we can get rid of nationalism, and we can move over to this global state called Earth, where all of it, we're all just one big happy family. There's no nations anywhere. We're all singing fucking kumbaya. This is the ideal society that you want to move us towards.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, is it or isn't it? Because I'm just summarizing what you said, I think.
Okay, I want to say it is. However, it's not very important to me because I'm more of a pragmatic person than an idealist.
Okay, got you. You're more of a pragmatic person. So pragmatically right now, the only way that you think that this could have worked out better is if there was a global response. We were all one united nation globally. And in that case, people would have done what they were told by these international scientists a lot better, and it would have prevented a lot more deaths, right?
I think definitely the point where I'll start, and I wouldn't even like ask for anything more, is if China wasn't so butthurt about giving information to the WHO.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. But
I
the
think
thing
that's
is,
I think that's like
what you're
where I will start.
describing is a very Orwellian style society, just so you know, where there's centralized planning for the entire globe, right? Um, and you run into all types of issues with this as well. The one issue that you're going to run into that's huge is who controls this global society.
Is it the globalists?
Well, no, I'm asking you. This is your idealism, not mine. You want there to be one society called Earth. Who would control it?
Uh, I would probably have it be democratic and
So the whole
have
population of Earth is going to
elections.
vote for the world government?
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
I guess
That sounds
so.
feasible. That sounds
It
feasible. So you would you have a president of the world, JChow? Would you have
so
a president of the world?
what do you think is like the limit to, or like the maximum a population needs to be reached in order for democracy to not function?
I think that democracy is a poor idea from inception.
What do you
Meaning
prefer?
meaning
Well, I
democracy is
mean, like I
terrible
already
if it's
asked you
three if
this.
it's three people it's terrible, and if it's 300,000 people it's terrible.
Uh-huh. So no, just
Uh-huh.
no matter what. Okay. So then
Yeah, democracy is always bad. Yeah.
uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, at least the democracy how you want it, which is expansionary democracy where everybody has a right to it. That's a terrible fucking idea. I can prove it to you. You don't use democracy inside your house, and neither did your parents. Um, and their parents didn't either. There was a head, and he was the king, probably. And what he said probably ended up going because you need to have a decision maker inside the house, and nobody got a fucking vote. Why would they get a vote?
Yeah, but I think that was because I was a kid and I was stupid.
Well, I mean, what about your mom? Your mom was a wife, I assume, right?
Oh, I mean, like at least for my household, you're not going to be getting it. My mom was the decision maker.
Your
Actually,
mom was the decision maker.
my family is pretty iffy. But then like even in other cultures, I guess like there's an authority for sure, but how
Mhm.
we choose that authority, I think, is like the ethical question that we have to be asking. And I think like it's really easy to say that every single government, even democracies, are authoritarian in nature, but it's how we get to that authority is what matters. And I think democratically electing
No,
it
I don't think that
involves
that's what matters.
involves
I think that
everybody's consent.
yeah. So
I
I
think what's
think
really
that the
important is
why
consent of
is
the governed.
consent so fucking important to being ruled? Why do you think consent's so important?
I would want to choose who rules me for sure.
Because me, because you think about me,
I think
right?
about me, I think about other
Hmm.
people, and I think about
So how much do you
everybody.
think your fucking vote's gonna matter when you're competing against 7 billion other people, JChow?
I think that's
For your
why
and you're gonna
it's really
vote? Are you
important.
gonna vote for your global president, JChow? You're gonna advocate for him or what?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
you
I
think
already
that
do that on a national scale. Why can't I do that for a global scale?
well, no, you don't do that on a national scale. You
I
do it on a
don't?
state scale, is what you do. And there's an electoral college here, and X amount of states go in and vote for who's going to end up being the
I mean, that's
president.
where the votes go.
Some states' votes are worth more than other states' votes. So your vote actually matters quite a bit deal more than if we had a direct democracy, doesn't it, Jay Chow?
So
Especially if you lived in a place like
matters more than
California.
yeah, yeah, it does. Well,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't want or my global democracy to be direct democracy. No.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is that what's going on right now is the advocacy for direct democracy. And that's what I'm telling you I'm against
Oh,
is
I'm not
direct
advocating for direct
democracy.
democracy at all. I don't
All
know
right,
what
so
gave you
you
that
want to limit
idea.
democracy too? Great. That's great. You want to limit democracy.
Hmm,
Perfect, Jay Chow. We
this is
found a
really
place to
interesting.
agree.
This is really interesting. So like in a way, yes, I do want to limit democracy
Yes.
because of this, okay? Because
Nationalism.
I'm not for well, I'm not sure how like you get this to nationalism. Um
Well, who's going to limit the democracy? The government, right?
the world government, sure.
Oh, it's going to be a world government that limits democracy.
I thought we were talking
So it
about
was
my
like it,
ideal hypothetical, so
okay, well,
yeah.
let's go back to your ideal hypothetical then. So, in your ideal hypothetical, the global democracy is limited.
Sure.
Is it okay? So, how would you limit it? Would it be like every country's worth X amount of votes to
Hmm. Well, I wouldn't do it by country, but what I probably would do it is like maybe by provinces.
by
So
province?
that's right. Uh-huh. It wouldn't be like how about this? It would the map would look like if it were countries, but it's not the countries that we have today. Because instead of it being by national identity, it would rather be say maybe a bit more bureaucratic, uh-huh. Yeah. So then you would have
A
so
bit more
it will
bureaucratic.
kind of be like a federalized system but like on steroids where you have the global government and then it's divided out into sections. And then those sections are divided out into provinces, and then those provinces are divided out to states, and blah, 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 blah. But it's all the same system. So it's kind of like here in the United States, where we have federal government, but then you localize it down to the state government, and then the state governments localize it down to maybe cities or counties or whatnot. So then that's probably how I would understand a global
Awesome.
democracy.
So, let's say inside your global democracy, right, where you have broken it down to provinces and things like this, that you get a leader who comes out of Russia and the world elects him, right? And Russia gets really cold and they don't want to use their oil. And this leader says, look, of course, I have no preference for Russians because there is no more Russia. I'm just a global leader, but we need all that oil from the United States, from all the private property owners who live over there. We don't like them having all that oil. We don't think it's fair. We should probably disperse a lot of it over here. Um, and you think that that would be okay to do just based on the fact that they were elected?
Well, that wouldn't happen, at least with how I think about it, because we wouldn't be fighting over resources with people who we see as our kin, as our fellow citizens.
We wouldn't be fighting over resources.
No, not like so kind of how you described it is how typically
Well, what if
nations
there's
would
not
would like
enough
argue
going?
over
What if there's not
resources.
enough to go around?
I think, ooh, that might be the issue as to like to all of our problems. It's scarcity. So like it's affecting our economics, and it's because of scarcity that we create politics and government that then chooses who gets what, when, and why. Who gets
Yeah.
what, when, and where. Yeah.
So in the global government, when there's
Probably post
scarcity,
scarce. It will probably be post scarce.
it would be post case. So the only way we could get to a global government is if we had solved all of the needs of everybody always.
Yeah, probably.
Then why would you need a global government?
You would still need
Why would you
bureaucrats.
need a global government if you've
No,
already solved all the problems, JChow?
you would still need bureaucrats in order to organize those resources. So just because we have the
Well, wait, why do
resources,
you need them to organize those resources if you've already solved the problem of scarcity? Why do you now need a global government when it's already been solved?
so we could actually think about this now. Do you think we have enough food in order to feed everybody on the planet Earth?
Yes,
Okay, but so why do we still have global hunger?
we don't.
Yes,
It's
we
mostly
do.
eradicated. No, we don't. We have poor countries where sometimes food is kept from people, but for the most part, hunger has is an issue that has been solved. Just so you know. Like, for
I
instance,
might.
I
I
know that
think
you're
I think I
probably one
heard
of
that
those
somewhere.
guys. I mean, you're probably one of those guys who listens to that Sarah McLaughlin shit, right? In the
I don't know
arms
who
of
that
the
is.
angel, and then it shows like the like the little fucking starving kid somewhere or whatever. I have posed this challenge 1,000 times, and still to this day, nobody can do anything to show it to me. But they'll say things like, "Tonight, 4 out of 7,
Uh,
four out of 10
okay.
children are going to go to bed hungry." And I always go, can you show me one of them? Because I don't want them to go to bed hungry, and I'll make sure that they get a meal right now. And nobody ever seems to be able to, Jay Chow.
Around the world, more than enough is produced to feed the global population, but as
Yes,
many as 811 million people still go hungry.
right. Because their governments keep food away from them for different reasons. Think about North Korea, for instance. Certain populations are starved on purpose. There's some sanctions against different nations, but we produce more than enough food to feed the global population with ease.
So does that mean that global hunger is solved?
Well, yeah, it's solved. I
No,
mean, though the
absolutely not. People are
problem, no, no,
people
no,
are
no, no.
still going
Back up,
hungry
back up.
because of politics. Just because the
Wait,
resources
back up.
aren't given, just because
You're
we
right.
have
You're
them,
right.
doesn't mean that global hunger is
I
eradicated.
misphrased what I was saying. What I'm saying is that there's more than enough to go around. Well, that was your initial question.
Yes,
Was do we have enough food to take care of everybody? And the answer is yes.
yes, and I agree.
Unequivocally, yes. We have
Yes.
enough food for everybody on planet Earth. But if your only way for you to get to globalism is to say we've already solved problems of scarcity, okay, then you don't need the globalism because you've already solved all the problems of scarcity. You
Okay, this
created,
is how I understand scarcity. Scarcity is when resources limit aren't limited. Yeah. So then, like, for example, food, I would say right now, yeah, it's limited, but there's enough to go around. Okay, we have the capacity to feed everybody and have all their hunger issues solved. But then the problem with that is that it's not distributed that way. And I think still, even in a post-scarce society, we still need government in order to make sure that resources are allocated in the way to the point where people can actually feel as if it is post-scarce. So just because we have
wait,
the
now it's about
resources,
feelings. So now there is no actual scarcity. Everybody's getting what they need. But we still need to get rid of the nation in order to have global governance because of feelings. Because it'll
well, we
make
would
people
need,
feel
no, we
better.
would need, just because I'm picking on words, we would need to get rid of nations in order to have global government.
Yeah, no, I get it. We would need to get rid of nations in order to have global government. Okay. But you think that we can only get there in a post scarcity society. So again, it stands to reason that if we're in a post scarcity society, we didn't need the global government. Why would we need a global government post scarcity? It makes no sense. It sounds like
It
the
does make
nation's already
sense.
solved all the problems.
It
So
it
what's
does
the
it does
problem?
no, it does make sense because a part of it is that like it's not an order of first, second, third, right? It's not uh political development doesn't happen in these kinds of steps. A lot of times it happens all at the same time. How I would say is that like we live in a post-scarce society for when it comes to food right now. Would you agree with that?
It, I mean, at least in most places, yeah.
Okay, sure. In most places, yes, but people are still going hungry. Despite this, nations, I would say, are a roadblock to the distribution of this food, because they're going to be thinking to about like themselves, like, okay, well, no, we need to have our reserves for ourselves, or we're not interested in the investment of sending out food to other countries and whatnot, or they might be having concerns about dumping food and in fact affecting the economy of other nations by doing so. So I think like what happens with nations is that because of their interest and because it conflicts sometimes with everybody else, then it gets into the way of actually distributing goods in a way that we would want it to be best for.
Gotcha. None of that made any sense to me, but that's okay. The debate's pretty much
Okay.
wound down to the 2 minute mark. I'll let you go ahead and close up first, JChow.
Yeah, so just in general, I think right now uh we live in a global society in which there are global problems that require global solutions. I think nationalism, especially if we're going to be thinking about it as like the detriment to the interests of other nations, are going to be getting into in the way of solving these global issues such as hunger, nuclear war, mass migration, climate change. I think I made a pretty good case as to why that should be the case and why a lot of the times nationalism does get in the way and gives us more problems than what we actually need to face.
Okay, gotcha. So here's what I discovered from this conversation with JChow. What I discovered was that in a post scarcity world, uh, that would be the time to implement globalism because all the problems are solved, at least as far as scarcity goes, because it's post scarcity, right? But that aside, um, there's huge compounding problems with the things that he's saying. Like, I want a global society, but at the same time, people seem to have some type of serious and significant identity to the peoples in which they associate with. Well, of course, it's always been this way. You notice all the time with these globalists, they always say global this and global that, right? It's like using the word makes your case for you. We live with, like, they'll say we live in a global society. Well, no, we don't live in a global society. Like, I don't live in a global society. I live in a small ass town, man. I don't live in a global society. What the hell are you talking about? That's one. Two, they still say things like, well, and we engage in global trade. Every nation's always engaged in global trade. As long as they were able to have ships that could reach harbors, we've been engaged in global trade all over the place, right? But they just use the word fucking global all the time. You know, it's global this and global that and global, global, global. Like, it somehow makes your case better for you, but it doesn't. We understand there's other parts in the world, right? But most people don't want to be a global citizen, and they're not ever going to want to be a global citizen because we do have unique identities when it comes to the nation. And a lot of people tend to want to gravitate towards those unique identities, as you've already stated. Right. So I don't know that this conversation was very fruitful, to be honest with you. I don't really feel like we got anywhere with anything because I really didn't even understand his positions most of the time. We went over everything from nuclear bombs over to scarcity issues, and I don't know that I was able to actually change the mind of JChow here on anything, but his positions just literally sound absurd to me. So that's what I'm going to close with, man. If you want to get to the Q&A, um, you guys in the audience, now's your chance to put it in. Um, I usually Pedro would be spamming the chat beforehand and writing everything down, but the bastard, he got married, and so now he's got his anniversary and shit that he has to do, which I think is kind of bullshit.
I
But
think
one
it's really
one
important.
it's a joke, man. I'm just joking. It's bullshit that on his
Family,
anniversary he has to
man.
take the
Thought you're a
night off.
family values guy.
That's the fun. J Chat, take a fucking joke, bro. You fucking leftists, you never
Yeah.
take a fucking joke ever with anything. You always freak out about everything.
Yeah, but I'm the
You
type of guy who will point out the joke and take it seriously as a joke. So you got played.
that's an attempt at being an irony, bro. But if you have to explain it, the irony's lost. That's that's the real irony, is that you shouldn't ever
Oh,
have to
I
explain
just got it,
irony.
man. You also explained it too. We're just in this
Uh,
infinite loop.
well, what would JChow have people do if they don't agree with how the global government runs things? Should people have options to go live under a different style of governance, which wouldn't be possible if they weren't in different countries?
What would people have to do if they don't agree with how the global government runs things? Oh, that's really interesting. So then how democracy would work is that when you're born into it, like we don't actually decide, hey, I'm going to be born into the United States because I like the government there and whatnot. Like I don't give consent when I'm born. But what democracy does is that it gives the options for people to change how that government works. So if you want to be like, if you would rather live in an authoritarian style government, I guess like your option would be to move to to an authoritarian style government, but I don't know why you would want to do that. Just like everything is better under democracy,
Well, but
when
he's
it
saying
comes
there's
to
no
welfare and whatnot.
option. He's saying there's no option to move, Jay Chow, because you're a global citizen. So where would you move to? The law's all the same.
The laws would be all the same. I don't know if that would be the case. No, like even in I mean
So
like even
global
in the United States,
democracy
like we
would be
live in
like
one country. Hold on, hold on. So like
what?
even in the United States, we live in one country, but laws between different states are different as well. I don't know how that would work under like my global government
The
hypothetical.
only laws in the states that are different are the ones that the federal government are not allowed to put down because it's outside their purview in the Constitution. So
Yeah,
for
I think
instance,
the
the
world
Tenth
government could also
Amendment.
do the same as well. I think I would rather
Okay, so even if
I
so,
would
if the
actually do
world
that.
government okay, right, but you can't, for instance, can a state have a king, like a state in the
In the
United
United
States?
States, no,
Yeah, can no, it
no.
can't, right? So you can't move to a monarchy in your global society, right? If that's your preferred form of government, can a state inside the United States have a dictator?
No.
No, right. So you couldn't move to a dictatorship inside your like all
Okay.
the other forms of government, essentially, that you would be advocating for would be gone, except for democracy. So you would essentially be eliminating everybody's choice. While you might think democracy is preferable, that might not mean that it's for everybody, right?
No, I think it would be for everybody.
Right. Whether
Yes.
it's
Whether whether
preferable,
whether
whether
if
they
you
want it or not, it's
whether you
for
want
them.
it or not. Yeah, okay,
Whether you want it
sure.
or not.
Yes. Yes. Oh my god. Okay, can you find me one person who would prefer, like unironically prefer an authoritarian style of government or a monarchy?
Yeah, I think many people would prefer a monarchy. I
Okay, all right.
know
If okay,
we
all
have
right, all right.
yeah.
Here's my take. Okay, if you live in the United States, just move. Oh my god,
Yeah, yeah,
why
but
are you
if you
still
have a
here?
you can't move, but move where in the global democracy there would be no place to move to is the
Well,
point.
I guess that's really unfortunate that I'm looking out for your actual interest of giving you rights and having you have
I
an
thought it was
ability
all
of
about
changing
consent. It
things.
was all about consent 20 minutes ago. Now it's about
You don't have
by my
consent under
authority,
authoritarianism.
I'm going to do what's right for you whether
You
you like
have
it or
you have
not.
consent. You have consent under a democracy because you actually vote and you actually have capabilities of changing the government to what you want. But you
Yeah,
don't have that
you
under an
just got to make sure that you
authoritarian
get six
system.
billion 900,000 other people to agree with you, and then you're all set. JChow. It's not a monumental undertaking
Most
at
countries
all.
now, I'm pretty sure the majority of the population on this earth live under a democracy.
Western populations do for sure.
No, I think like just also global as well, like in the developing world as well.
Well, maybe some form of democracy. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or it's false. I think it's probably true. But to Jay Chow, what will be the animating principle that will drive your global government? Communism, Islam, Christianity? What?
The animating principle? What does that mean?
It means like what would be the driving force for the ideology that would make people want to, you know, have some type of community with each other?
International liberalism. That's the first thing that came out of my mind. Or actually, I would actually have two. So there's There's international liberalism and then cosmopolitanism, probably liberal cosmopolitanism.
Liberal cosmopolitanism. So
Yeah.
like Bastiat style.
Uh,
Bastiat
is
style.
that what
He's a
Bastiat would say?
cosmopolitan.
Is that what Bastiat would say? Probably, but I don't. I'm not confident. But if that helps you, then go for it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So um, it looks like Claire Shaw probably wants to have a conversation with you over on her channel at some point. I don't know if she's setting that up with you or not, but
Oh,
I get
awesome! I
I
would love to have any conversation with anybody. Even I would love to continue this conversation with you, BPF. This was like our first time talking, and I think like it was a bit rough this time because I don't really know much about you. You don't really know much about me, and like maybe that caused a bit confusion.
well, I did see that you were watching Attack on Titan before the program, or at least some type of promo for Attack on Titan. So that was pretty cool,
Nice.
right? Attack
Yeah,
on Titan's okay, right? Yeah,
it's awesome.
anytime.
I love it.
I don't know why. I don't see, but I don't know why the Japanese are so fucking fascinated with fucking people eating people. You know, it's like every other anime now is some motherfuckers getting eaten by somebody. You know, I don't get it. JChow, the majority of people on planet live in India, China, and Africa. None of them are democratic. Well, and then he ends it with something a little bit on the spicier side, but yeah. He
All
says none of
right.
them are very democratic.
Okay.
And he called you a leftard.
Nice.
So I mean
Just
that's what he says is that India, China, and Africa, none of them are democratic. I mean, he's got a point, right? None
no,
of those
because
are very
that's
democratic.
because it says nothing about the rest of the populations around the world. So like how I kind of said, like 330 million people for the United States is really large, but there's a total 8 billion people. And then China is like what? I mean India is a democracy. Probably not like the best democracy that I will point to as like an example, but yeah, they are a democracy. So then
Inside
like
of a
that's
caste
1
system.
billion people right
Inside of a
there.
caste system.
Wasn't the caste system abolished?
Yeah, I'm just, but a lot of the culture still abides by it. I guess is my
Yeah,
point. You
and a
know,
lot of people would also say that a lot of the culture here in the United States have are abided by from slavery. I mean, like every single country has in their past their faults and whatnot, but what matters more is like what we're able to change to right now, and there's still a lot of work to be done with. But
I just think it's odd that you happen to the global government that you want happens to 100% reflect just a continuation of the current government of the United States, just at a macro level rather than a micro level. Like, you don't think that that's just a little bit biased, Jay Chow? You know, like we're going to set it up that there's a global federal system and then all provinces are looked at as states, and you would set this system up the same way. You don't think that that's just a little bit intuitively biased?
biased to my preferences because I'm playing God. I guess so, yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
playing
So,
God.
but I mean, that's what you want to see ideally. That's what you said. So you're not really playing God. You're like, you want to actively move towards this type of society, right?
Uh, in a way, yes, I would do that, but like I I see it as like taking steps, and like it's a step maybe in like 1,000, and I wouldn't know if like my first step isn't just going to lead to 2 steps back or whatnot. So what I would hope is that like within my next 10 lifetimes that this might happen, but I don't see it happening now. So like it's not like um how about this, okay? Just some personal life advice. When you're setting goals, make sure that they're obtainable. Because if you set a goal
Whoa,
so
hang
far
on.
off, hold
This
on.
is life advice. How
This
old are
is
you?
life advice. Yes, make sure that the goals that you
How
set
old are
are
you, Jay
obtainable.
Chow?
I am 24.
You're too. So why in the world do you think that you're equipped to give anybody life advice about anything?
I've lived 24 years of my life.
And so, in the 24 years of your life, one of the things that you fundamentally learned is don't set goals that are not obtainable. And how do you know if a goal is obtainable?
Uh, so like for personal goals, take for example, I've thought about this, and because of I guess like what I wanted to do on content creation, but also because other people have told me as well. So the life advice doesn't necessarily have to be just originally coming from me, but like a lot of people would actually say this. Take for example, like if you're streaming on Twitch, and like one of your goals is to get 10 viewers. Well, guess what? You don't get to control the 10 people who are going to be viewing your stream. But what you can control is what you're going to be broadcasting, how consistent you're going to be broadcasting, your style, your environment, your equipment, like all these things. Those are the things that you're in control of. So then, yeah, I would. So then,
Yeah, but
kind
how
of
do you
like
know
taking
when
this now to like
how do you know if
politics
a
is that like,
goal's
yeah,
obtainable though? That's my question. How do you know if a goal's
whether
obtainable?
or not you could obtain it, sure.
Well, you're just answering the question by
Yeah.
defining what I said. How do you know if a goal's obtainable, JChow?
Whether or not it's within your control or influence, I guess so.
So
Your direct
everything
influence. How about that? That's because like indirectly you would want to reach 10 viewers on your stream. Um, but then that may not be like the best kind of an approach to a goal. So then like instead you would want to be thinking about, well, how can I get to 10 viewers instead? So then when you set those goals, then you might be able to have a better chance and a better idea, a better strategy of actually achieving your goals.
Well, so here's some life advice to counter yours. And
Okay.
if I were you, JChow, I would take it. Always set your goals higher than anything that you can imagine you can obtain. Always shoot for the stars because if you land on the moon, JChow, you got further than you ever thought you would get. That's good life advice, just so you
Interesting.
know. And you should ignore this other bullshit about only set goals that are obtainable. Almost everything is in
Southern.
your power to achieve, just so you know.
Interesting. Okay. You're more of an idealist than I am.
No, I don't think it's idealism. Have you ever read Proverbs? It's a book in the Bible. It's written by King Solomon. And
I
you know,
read
they
the
call him,
Bible. I read like maybe the book of Genesis and the second book for a class in college. Thank God I didn't read the entirety of that thing because the
yeah,
beginning was just weird.
why would you want the collective wisdom from all of the different wise men that have been gathered over the last 6,000 years and all put in one single book? It's not even worth a read. Instead, we can do these bizarre calendar slogans where we can say, don't set goals that are unachievable. Slogans, right? Rather than actual wisdom. You need to kick out 90% of the shit that's in your brain, JChow. It's nonsensical. It's bullshit. Kick it out and go get wisdom from actual wise people.
Would
Right?
would that be you?
No.
Oh,
I
why
just
not?
told you where my wisdom came from. It came from wise people.
Yeah, but wouldn't that make you a wise person?
No, it just means
Why
that I
not?
listen to the wisdom of wise people.
Wait, so then who are the wise people then?
I just told you. I just gave you an example of many.
Interesting. I
They
wasn't
don't
paying
work
attention.
at calendar companies and put slogans on their fucking wall. I can tell you
No?
that. Like, you know, it's like those old fucking slogans. See, you might not know this, but all those little calendar slogans and shit were big when I was in school too. You know what I mean? And it would say all types of little goofy shit like that. You know what I mean? How about this one? Today is the beginning of the rest of your life. Right? That feel good, real good shit doesn't really mean anything. You know what I mean? It's not real wisdom, JChow. Just get rid of it. I'm just saying. Just get rid of it. It's garbage.
Interesting.
It's polluting that great brain of yours that could be making good commentary on animes and shit. You know what I mean? That's just my opinion, brother.
Ah, thank you. I know I have a
Anyway,
great brain.
yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the Crucible tonight. Thanks for throwing the channel down. We take all comers. I've always been like that. A lot of big people gave me a start. I'm happy to give other people theirs. JChow, thank you so much for coming on tonight. You want to shout out your channel again before you go?
Yeah, twitch.tv/JChow Live. You could also find me on YouTube. I study political science, international relations. I have degrees in both of them. I talk a lot about political science on my channel and do a lot of political analysis. If you're interested in that, then pop on by.
All right, man. Take care.
I bet those glasses make you see better.